Hello and welcome to the CHA Extracurricular Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Keller, and I am excited to have FL Slough here in the studio. Oh, first question. Is that the right way to pronounce your name?
Absolutely. You said it right.
All right. Well, I'll try to keep doing it the right way for the rest of this episode at least. Well, thank you for being here, Mr. Slough.
Glad to be here.
To have
Thank you, Chris.
Today, we're going to get to talk with the athletic director and all things sports today. I'm sure we'll get into some other things that are tangential to sports, but we're just excited to have a conversation. And honestly, folks, this is my first chance to kind of ask FL the question. If you just share a little bit about your background, maybe, an interest in sports. I'm sure that started early on, but then kind of cut to the chase and tell us how you ended up at Christian Heritage Academy. We're so grateful to have you here, and I'd love to hear that story.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here, Chris. I started out at a young age, sports, loved it, loved the competition, and carried it through my life, playing it, and got into coaching and teaching health and physical education. For 27 years I taught and coached at Franklin County High School. I left Franklin County, went to Roanoke City as the athletic administrator over all the sports in the city. That was 5 middle schools and 2 high schools I oversaw. And then coming to CHA, it kind of found me. I didn't find it until after the fact. But after 36 years in public education, I thought it was time for a change. I retired from public education, and this is my second year at CHA, and I thoroughly enjoy being here.
Yeah. Well, did you ever imagine you'd be cutting grass and sweeping gym floors?
Well, it's kind of funny. My wife laughs at me because I love to cut grass. I get on the mower, put my headphones on, and the grass doesn't fuss at me, doesn't complain, and I can get out and I can kind of collect my thoughts and so forth. So I don't mind the mowing part. The sweeping the floors and the taking out the trash and announcing games is okay. But it keeps me busy, and I like that part of it, keeping busy.
Yeah. Well, I know we wear a lot of hats here at CHA, and I appreciate you wearing all those different hats. And I agree with you. When I was growing up, my parents had about 5 acres of grass, and got to get out there on the zero turn and do that, and that was pretty enjoyable after a day of school, I'd have to say. Now I have to do push mowing in Roanoke, so that's not quite as fun. I don't enjoy that as much.
No, not that. Push mowing is not the thing.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this, and I knew I would need to be careful about how to ask this one, so I won't say what's your favorite, but when you were growing up playing, what sport did you put the most time into?
Well, back in those days, you played fall, winter, and spring, and so I played football, started at a young age. Basketball, I started at a young age, and then baseball. So I loved those 3. When I first got into coaching, I coached all 3.
Wow.
And back to back to back, and that was a lot. So that ended after 2 years, and I stuck with baseball and football. So those were my 2 go-to. I was an average player, but had fun doing it and competing and so forth. So.
And you stayed busy then too, coaching all those sports for sure.
I did.
Well, after being in the public system for so many years and then having CHA find you, I love that. I think a lot of folks, CHA finds them, so I think that's a great way to put it. But what's kind of your perspective on athletics here at CHA after coming out of that context? And I really want this to be open. You don't have to say anything in particular, but just what are some observations you've had or things that have kind of stuck out to you while you've been here?
Well, I think athletics, whether it's here at CHA or whether it's at a public school, it's the same. Everybody competes. They want to win. I think the numbers that we deal with here at CHA hinders us a little bit. So we have to rely on the commitment piece and being at practice and being at the games and being supportive is a big piece. I want to see CHA grow. Be a little bit more competitive in all sports, not just a few. And we're working on that. It's a slow process. We're not going to turn the ship around immediately, but we have to be patient and trust the process.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into sports participation. How do you view either bringing those kids in, or how do you motivate kids already here to be more involved in different sports or multiple sports? What's kind of your take on sports participation?
So I think if you put a good product on the court or on the field or on the course, I think that brings in kids that want to be competitive.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we make this a special place for our student athletes. We want to make sure that they compete at a high level and understand why we want to compete at a high level.
Yeah.
If you put in half the effort, you're going to get half the results. And it's a slow process. We get that group, the young ones that are coming in to CHA at the middle school level, 5th through 8th grade. They've been in the rec department programs for years. This is a step up from the rec department.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make this very competitive. Our numbers hurt us a little bit. So one of the things when I was at Franklin County with over 2,000 students, you didn't have to worry about numbers as much, but you wanted to have those athletes play multiple sports.
Yeah.
Right now in the sports world, seems like our athletes tend to gravitate to a single sport and try to specialize in that sport. And most of your great athletes that you see on TV on college levels and the professional levels, they played multiple sports
Right.
growing up and competed. So it's not just doing one thing. So I'd like to see our numbers pick up and have athletes play multiple sports.
Yeah.
And have fun and compete, because when you're in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, you don't know you're going to be a LeBron James when you're at a senior or
Right.
getting ready to go to college. You don't know if you're going to be a Peyton Manning, where you're going to be a high-rated quarterback. So we want to make sure that we have enough numbers to sustain teams.
Yeah.
And that's been the hard thing for me to adjust to, is the numbers piece, and maybe having a team this year at one level and next year not having. So where I
Right.
came from, the public education side, the public schools, they had those numbers. You pretty much knew you were going to have a team every year.
Right.
Just didn't know the numbers, but you were going to have teams. So that's been a hard adjustment for me, but we're working on that to get the numbers where we need to be.
And I love how KIT builds into that too, right? We have that program for the elementary kids to kind of make sure they know we have sports here. Or maybe I should ask you, what do you see that as? How does that kind
I
of?
like the KIT program because it allows our athletes that are participating now at our higher levels, they're able to work with the younger kids. Those younger kids look up to them, and
Yeah.
they're watching them, and they don't realize it. But when they get into that KIT program and they start working with them one-on-one, you start to see the light bulb come on, and
Right.
they enjoy that part of it, and it makes it special for the little ones, and
Yeah.
that's where we got to start.
Yeah, and I love that too, because we need those older kids to realize the impact that they have here. That's significant.
Yeah.
And that can then go back into, you were talking earlier about when you're participating, how into it are you, right? Like how hard are you working at practice? How much effort are you putting in? And I know what I was going to ask. Kind of from a coach's perspective, if you can get that mindset, how do you convince a player that they should be playing multiple sports? What's that pitch for those kids?
So I think you have to talk to them. You have to be honest with them, and you have to be real. To be, in high school, you should be playing multiple sports. You don't have to be the best at everything.
Right.
But again, you talk to them and say, look, 3 or 4 years down the road, you're not sure if you're going to be a volleyball player, you're going to be a basketball player, you're going to be a soccer player. Enjoy everything you got while you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Because once the sports is done, they turn the lights off. You're out in the real world. You don't have any memories.
That's right.
And you don't want to have any regrets, because that's the thing that, as a coach, you try to instill in your players. Don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
I've had some athletes that didn't come out and play after playing for 3 years for me, didn't come out their senior year, and you talk to them now, and their biggest regret was not sticking with it through
Yeah.
the 4 years. And
Yeah.
so we don't want them to have any regrets.
That's right. I also love how this builds into creating well-rounded students, being athletes, but also being in academics, and those things really work together. You learn a lot of good skills on the court that apply in the classroom.
Absolutely.
Diligence, working hard, being prepared, all those sorts of things. So I love that we are able to, we work well together. I feel like we do, at least.
That's why we call them student athletes.
Yeah.
You know, that goes hand in hand. What you do in the classroom, if you do become a real good athlete and you want to continue your career at the next level, the college level, you know, you have to have the academic piece.
Yeah.
Because the athletic piece will not be there your entire life because of injuries or sports demands and so forth. So you have to have something to fall back on. So the student athlete piece is a big part.
Absolutely. And thank you for your support in that way. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
How about let's talk a little bit about sportsmanship. How do we approach sportsmanship at CHA? And we can think of that on multiple levels. And maybe we can also connect that to a biblical worldview. And as a Christian school, what does it mean to be good sportsmen?
Well, I think the sportsmanship piece, it takes care of itself on the part of parents and our athletes. You know, we have to be good sports. You don't know who's watching, and we want to make sure that we are representing not only the player but the player's family.
Yeah.
We want to represent CHA and the CHA community because our shirts, all our uniforms have CHA or have the Knights on them, and everybody knows that we are representing CHA. So we want to make sure that we do what Jesus would do.
Yeah.
How would he behave at a basketball game, or how would he react to a win or a loss? Being humble, being gracious in winning and defeat. You know, we have to learn from those things. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We represent more than ourselves, don't we?
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, Coach Slough, I want to thank you so much for being willing to take a few minutes from a busy school day to come in here and talk with us on the podcast. I've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll be willing to come back sometime.
We will. We'll talk about sports again and whatever's in the news. And I thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you all for being with us today and listening to this episode of the Extracurricular Podcast. Remember, you can find us on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe, and you can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can follow us there. With that, may we be united in Christ. Go Knights.